Hello, I am Giuliana. I traveled since many years ago. My first traveling overland was in 1972, and I started from Italy and did arrive till to Nepal. Was interesting that period because, contrary of what is now, there was peace from Italy till to Nepal. No war in the middle. We could travel quietly everywhere. So when you look about the world of that period, and when we look about the world that we are living now, we see a very big difference in worst. Anyways, we can travel as well. We have to be much more careful than before for how to choose the way. And this last trip did begin at the beginning of November, and I had to be very careful because some countries that I had to cross that were not in very good condition, like Iraq, that I saw before, so it is in much worse condition now than when I saw the first time. There was still Saddam Hussein, and it was a very quiet country where you could travel with no problem. The people was very friendly, as they are still now. So this trip did begin from Italy. Then I took the boat from Ancona to Igumenitsa, and then did cross Greece, then did arrive to Turkey. In Turkey, I did decide to go as much as possible straight, but I did stop to see a very interesting archaeological place near San Liurfa. That is a temple, very old one, that did change the history about the Neolithic period, about religion and how the people was looking at the temples as God, because they were much more advanced than what people was thinking till a few years ago. After that, I did enter to Iraq, and Iraq along the normal way is quiet, is no problem at all, but there is no problem because the military that are looking very well about the road, and they are keeping it free from any kind of Daesh and things like that. In Iraq, of course, many things that I have seen doesn't exist anymore, like Nimrud, because it was destroyed by Daesh. But some things are still good. I thought that the region of Chivaish, that are the lagoon along the Euphrates River, could be destroyed, but it was not that. It's still okay. There is much less water than before, so the villages are not so beautiful like I saw the first time. But anyways, they still exist, and the people is still going around by boat and show the lagoon to the tourist. And in the season...
Ecco cosa ho trovato sul web.
And the season is of a pelican is going to begin in February. February, March, April will be a very nice place to see this kind of birds fishing in the river. After that, I went to Kuwait, and then from Kuwait I did begin a little round trip in Saudi Arabia. That was from Ha'el to Skaka, then Taima, and then to Alula, and then in the desert between Alula and Haim and Ha'el, and then I came down.
Questo è quello che ho trovato.
I have to switch it off. But was very interesting, and After that, I went to the south, and I did reach National, no, National, and then I did cross again another desert to see to the beautiful rock art of Bir Hima, and then along the Saudi desert of Rubal Kali, I did reach the capital Riyadh, and then again along the desert I did make that wonderful masterpiece that is the road that go to the border of Oman. That is something that we cannot imagine that could exist, because the road has been made on the dunes. And I have to continuously, I have to clean the sand, otherwise the road will disappear in a few days. And then I did arrive to Nizhka, and where I can begin again to make another round trip in this country. You see, at the beginning it's very difficult to talk about Oman because I haven't seen it at all.
Okay, there's some question for me. You start your travel in 1970, 76, 72.
72. This kind of trip, because before I was
this kind
traveling,
of trip. Okay.
but for different reason.
Okay, different reason. But from 1972, this is the first time you been to Oman.
Yes.
How's the Oman?
The country looks very nice. It's about similar for what I was thinking. For instance, in Saudi Arabia, the idea in Italy is
Questo è ciò che ho trovato su.
the idea in Italy is very different from the reality, because with the people in Italy thinks that is something much more primitive than what it is. Here, Oman, no. I think that the people know that it is several years that Oman has tourism, so the organization is about what we are thinking. It's not so different.
Okay, there is important question. You start your traveling in 1972. In 1972. How you are traveling before without internet?
It was much more difficult than now. You have to find people. You have to find people that made that trip, and they ask him where they have to stop, what they have to prepare for the trip. That was not easy. I was looking in everywhere where I could find the news of traveler, and I had to phone to them to get the news to make the trip. Then it began to be possible to use some, not internet, but to use some software, and to put the way that you have to do in on the maps. But the maps didn't exist. There were some paper maps only, and then you have to put the georeference in your from the maps in the computer, and then to take the georeference and put them in the that was Garmin GPS. It was a very difficult and long preparation. That was not in the first trip. The first trip was just news from other travelers. You could not get anything else. Then you could get this information, and the information you could receive them from internet, but there was not any software that you could use directly. You had to build build your way, and in the computer, and then you had the point. You had to move the point from the computer to the GPS, and then when you were traveling, you had only the point that you did put in the GPS.
And also, I think it's not easy to put it a point from there to computer, from the computer to the maps.
But there was you could find how to do, and there was some website that where there were people that had done that before you, so they did teach you.
Do you remember some website or something before you are using for that?
No, the website that
I
I did use was Sahara Pointed. That was the traveler for the Sahara, because the first trip after that was in the desert. And then, of course, the GPS was empty. Was a empty page, and everything was inside you had to put. So the only map that we had in the Sahara were the Russian, and they were written in Cyrillic. Was not easy to understand the name. Fortunately, I did study a little of Russian, not very well, but just enough to understand the name of the town. So using that, you the map. In the map, you had the ways that you could do, and then you put. See, if there is a way where it was straight, you put one point at the beginning and one point at the end. Each time there was a bend, you had to put 2 points because then you had to do the bend. Then when the bend is finished, you put a point, then it's straight. You don't need to put anything, but you put a point where there is the other bend. And that was made on the Russian map. The point that you get in this way, no? This point, you could move them to the GPS. But it was not so simple, because the Russian map were in the paper. And then these things had to be made in the computer. So you had to take the Russian map and then move that in the computer. In the computer, you put you had a grid with the latitude and longitude, and then you have to move the map to make it in such a way that the map and the position were right. This was possible. You had to learn to do that. Then you put the point in the map manually, and then you put the point in the GPS. It was much more complicated than now. In that period, I was not making very long trip. With a trip like this one, would have been impossible to make all the point, to have all the point for all the trip. But in that period, in the Sahara, you could that was a very good exercise to begin to understand how a map is made, how to follow it, how to take the point, to do this kind of things. It was not for.
Okay, the first trip about you in 1972. Which car you are using in that time?
It was a Citroën de Chevaux. That was not a 4x4, but was light. And then it was easy to make also some not asphalt way, because it was not all asphalt with now. And then on the west, the road were good. As soon as you were going to the west, the road were always worst. At the end, they were just a rough road with no asphalt, nothing. And then you arrive to the next country, the road was again good, then always worst as much as you were going to the east. It was strange why they did that. And especially the road between two countries, no people was doing anything of them, on them, so they were completely broken normally. You had to go very slowly. And to travel a lot of hours, something like 8, 9, 10 hours each day. Because I had not many months in that period. I was working, and I had holidays only.
Okay, for the example, from 70 to 80.
So in that period, I did travel in summer, and sometime maybe 15, 20 days in winter. The logistic of doing things was that. Some example, I went to Iraq. There was Saddam in Iraq. And flight to Iraq, when the organization that we did carry with us, I was going normally with a little group of people. So we had a sleeping bag. We had plastic because the bed sometimes was not clean at all. So the way was this: we had some powder against the insect. So we put the powder against the insect on the bed, a plastic to cover the powder, not to breathe them, and then we put our sleeping bag on the top of that. That is the beginning in Iraq. And it was difficult to find sometimes the place, because in Iraq in that period there were a lot of pilgrims from Saudi Arabia, and from Saudi Arabia and from Iran, especially, because the Shiite they have the holy places in Iraq, in Karbala and Najaf. And so they are, one time they arrived in Karbala, there was nobody there, but everything was booked from the pilgrim of Iran. And then we had to go to a very bad place that was really useful to have the powder for insect and the plastic, because it was really the worst that you can imagine. So we were prepared of everything. When another winter trip was in Congo, in the Kivu region. Also there we had a sleeping bag, and we did hire a big truck. And then on the big truck did carry some potato, because only with the people the truck would have been too light. And then we were sleeping on the potato. With our sleeping bag on that. And then if we could not find a place, sometimes we could find a room, because the driver a little knows, and we could find a room with nothing inside, of course.
And this one, in which year in Africa?
That was maybe in 80, 82, 83, that year.
1982.
Mm-hmm. That in Africa. Then in the east was more easy. Mm-hmm. When we went to Indonesia, to India, was much easy, because you could find some hotel, and there were in India, for instance, there were guest house. The guest house had been made from British people for the men that were working for the state, for the British state, and so they did make this guest house for these people that were traveling and checking what was going on, in the organization of the country. So that was easy, because they had a simple bed. The bed was just the legs and something flat, and then we had to put our mattress and our things. But they could, for instance, in the evening, they could prepare for us maybe roast chicken and potato. That was already something better than nothing. No? We had always with us some cheese, and you see, but not any kind of cheese. The cheese that you give to the children that don't need the fridge, because you could not find any fridge, you could find anything. Only cheese and some crackers and things like that. So when we could not find anything, we did that. No? That was in that period. I went several times to India, Kashmir, Ladakh, and that was the organization. Then little by little the things did change. Of course, when you were in some places, you had to take guide, because you had no information about the way that you had to do. So you had to travel in that way. For instance, then I went to Myanmar, that was much more clean. The people were more kind, no confusion like in India, and that was better. Because I remember when we did arrive one time in Myanmar, and we was a group enough big for that country. So when we were in Pagan, they had to make the bed for us, but to make the bed was not to prepare the bed with the mattress, was to make the bed with the wood. And they were making the bed. Oh, we are finished. After 2 hours, you can have the bed. And then in another place, Lake Ingley, when they told us that they had to make the room, we had understood that they were really to make the room. So with the timbers and things like that. But they were very nice because they were completely new, and they did smell of wood, new wood. They were wonderful. And that was more easy because the local food was good for us. We had not to use our food. Then only maybe in a transfer where you don't have place to stop. But in that country, everywhere you stop, you go in the market, and then you find people that make rice with vegetables or with chicken or with something, with eggs, and the food was always good. That was...
Okay. One question. When you travel, always, you are starting from 1972, do you scare about the food when you travel?
Of course, you have to eat only food that was cooked, nothing raw, in no country. In that period was that. You have no choice, otherwise you would have problem. You had to carry your medicines, happen to have something quickly. But the food, you see, in Africa is more problem. But in Asia, no, because they cook the rice, and that was always good. You see, they cook the rice at the moment, and you had no problem for the food. The problem was if you want to eat salad. Salad, in these things like that, you could not eat that. Otherwise, you don't make the trip anymore, you are stuck somewhere. Now, for people that want to travel and have to begin, now it's very different than many years ago because you have more possibility. But there are some things that you absolutely need. The first thing is that you need to know some languages. And that you have to begin to learn when you are young, and at least in the same time when you go to school. At least English and some French, maybe some Spanish, to go everywhere. So the first thing is to understand enough well something, otherwise you cannot communicate, and if you cannot communicate, to travel is dangerous because something may happen and you go straight against problem. Then the other things is to know some technology, because in the past there was about no technology. Now there is a lot of technology, and then if you don't know it, your travel will be much more difficult because even the roads are much more difficult than in the past. In the past, the main road was the main road. You could not go far away from that. Now, if you arrive in a place where there are 3-4 roads, then you have to go left, but to go left, you have to turn right. Then there is a way, and then if you don't if you don't have a GPS, if you don't have something that tell you how to pass, you will always go in a wrong place, and then it's not like before that you could make a U and go back. To go back, you have to make 20 kilometers. and then turn back and take the right road. So it's essential now to be able to use GPS and the software of navigation. Without that, you cannot go. It's impossible. And also the traffic is much more complicated, especially in town. But I remember that in the first trip to India, when I was Islamabad, in Lahore, I didn't know how to go. And I had to make the point with the compass, because we saw in the map that there was a hotel, and then I say, oh, we have to go on the direction, because the town was, I did arrive in the night, and big confusion with cows, animals, sheep, people, bicycle, and everything. And then, where to go? Because no people could speak any language that I could understand. So you did use the compass to point one hotel and to go in the area of the hotel, and there you could find some information. And then you go to, don't know, you go to a hotel and you ask there. No? Now, this is no more necessary, because you have the software, so you know exactly where you are going always. This is something very, very different. So it's very important to have some maps, to have things like that, and especially to have digital maps now, to use that you can use that in the iPad, or you can use that with the GPS, and where you can put all your information. These are the most important thing. For the, yes, of course, for the food you have always to bring something, because you never know, you get stuck somewhere, or you start and then you cannot go on because you have to wait 2 hours for some reason, and then it's lunchtime, you have nothing to eat. You must have always something that you eat quickly, or maybe you arrive in the evening, it's very late. You cannot always go to bed without food. So you need some organization of simple food that you can use. And you need some organization to make the food. Then maybe you don't make it, but if you really need, you have to be independent for food, for water, for things like that. Then it is also very important to have some or radio or internet website where you can get information about the situation in a country. There can be a revolution, and if you don't know that, then you can even not to be able to come back. So you have to get information always. That in the past you were going and you hope that everything is okay. Now it's different. You must know where you are going, and to have information and a connection with people at home, because sometimes it's more easy to find the news from home than from when you are traveling, because maybe it's an area where you don't reach anything. So maybe they stay 2 days with no information at all. This is mainly the things that changes. Then, of course, when you begin to travel, you have not to begin to travel with difficult things. You have to do the things step by step. Something more easy than something more difficult. Because also when you travel and you are isolated, if you are not accustomed to be isolated, you will suffer that. And that will make the travel much more difficult than what it is really. Because you don't know what you are going to do, what you are going to find. And then if you are accustomed, you know that before or later you will reach a place where you can get the things that you need. But if you panic, that is the worst thing that you can do when you travel. So slowly, don't do too much, little by little, and then you have to decide to go. Then if you have friends, you go with friends, that is always better. If you don't have friends, you go by yourself. There is no choice. That is in any time, in any age. I did begin to travel. I was around very young because I had to go to learn languages. I was 19 when I did begin to travel. But now I am 82 and I still travel. Of course, you have to know how much you can do in one day at any age. Then now, for instance, I need to stop more often because maybe now I was traveling for about 8, 9 days every day. And now I need to stay for some days quiet to do my things, to clean my things and things like that. That are also important. You cannot go on if you have everything dirty. You have to keep the things in good order. Otherwise, you get tired and then you are nervous. And when you travel, you have to be very, very patient. You have to think that you have to fight with nobody. And then because you are not in the position that you can do that. So other things I don't know exactly what I can say. That are the main things.
So I don't have anything to say about. Nice to hear you about your travel in around the world. You are starting your age in 19 years and you are now in 82 years and you are still in the road. And nice to hear about you. Yeah, I am so happy because I'm also this video, so many people he will see this video and he will listen about your story. Yeah, and thank you very much for this video.
Thank you to you.
Yeah. Do you want to say anything? Something?
It depends because you see, each people, you cannot say something that is good for everybody. You should know who is listening and maybe you can say something more. For all the people, it's very difficult. See, because the world is changing so quickly that what is good today cannot be good tomorrow.
Yeah.
The problem that we have today are not that of 20 years ago, and maybe are even different of that of 2 years more.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to say something that is for everybody.
طبعا اليوم اللقاء كان من برز الدراقين عمان في سلطنة عمان وفي التحرير في ولاية نزوة ومعاكم أخوكم أحمد الإسماعيلي. طبعا هنا في برز الدراقين عمان عندنا استقبال الرحالة من كل دول العالم وهذا الرحالة طبعا يعني أنا أقول إنها يعني مثل كبير للرحالة. بدت ترحال وهي عمرها 19 سنة واليوم عمرها 82 سنة. أول رحلة ابتدت فيها في 1972 واليوم احنا في عام 2025 وهي لا زالت على الترحال. طبعا هذا أكبر نقول إنه أكبر مثال وأكبر يعني قدوة للترحال حول العالم مثل هذه الناس. وطبعا هي ترحل وحيدة بنفسها يعني من بداية ترحالها من وهي يعني من 1972 لحد 2025 الترحال بنفسها. واليوم هي موجودة عندنا في سلطنة عمان وبالتحديد في ولاية نزوة. وطبعا إنها يعني أول زيارة إلها إلى سلطنة عمان اللي هي في هذه السنة في 2025. ولو أن نقول أن بدأت ترحال في 1972، لكن أول زيارة إلها في سلطنة عمان. وطبعا هي منبهرة من العادات والتقاليد ومن الناس اللي موجودين هنا ومن تراحيبهم ومن استضافتهم. فنقول ألف تحية لها ونتمنى لك الخير إن شاء الله، ونقول إنه يعني هذا مثال إنه نقتدي فيه في عالم الترحال. ويعطاكم الصحة والعافية. أخوكم أحمد الإسماعيلي، سلطنة عمان، ولاية نزوة.